recently played live for the first time in quite a while. You can check it out here, and I thought it went quite well, and it would be interesting to take a look at what my setup was for the gig and talk about some performance aspects that I utilised. My setup was exactly as you see here. I have the OP-1 as my main sound source. The SP-404 I was using to trigger some supporting audio, and my EURORACK is essentially an effects chain and modulation, and that's it. Let's get started. So the first question is, how is all of this synced up? And the answer is, it's not, basically. The OP-1 is set to 120 BPM, the 404 is 120, and PAMS is also set to 120, and PAMS is the clock for everything going on in the EURORACK case. And then I'm just kind of relying on hitting things on time, which for the most part has been fine. So I actually started this set with some sort of bit crush coming from the data bender, and that allowed me to have a beat to work with rather than trying to trigger everything all at once. Just an easier way to do it. So you can hear the beat there. And that means I can just bring in the OP-1 whenever I'm ready. And now I'm going to bring in the 404. And provided you hit it in on time, it will stay in time, and that's pretty much what you want. And so for the next section, I'm going to take out the bit crush and the first chord progression, and then bring in the next chord progression, and the plan is again to just do it on time. Yeah, and a lot of that was actually muscle memory. I did rehearse before before trying this, but if you've practiced, it is quite easy to do. So let's talk quickly about what PAMS is actually doing. Channel 5 of PAMS is going over to the seed input on beads, and as you can see from the flashing light in the corner here, beads is now operating at 120 BPM, and channel 1 is doing the exact same thing with the data bender. It's going to the clock input, and you can see from the white light here that it's going at 120 also. And channels 4 and 8 here are both going to maths. Channel 1 of maths is modulating the filter cutoff. With the filter cut off all the way up, you're not going to hear any modulation, but as you bring it down, you will, and it will be in time. And channel 4 is going to the pitch on beads to do some weird pitchy stuff, and it is also going to be in time. But both of these inputs are actually divisions of the clock, so they will be going slower. If you can, I don't know if you can see the lights on maths here, they are going a lot slower than 120 BPM, but it does mean that everything is in sync, and that's Such a cool way to get fun, good, interesting variations on quite basic tracks, which we'll have a look at now. So next I'd like to talk about what is going on with the OP-1. And actually it's quite shamefully simple, especially for this track. There are 2 tracks on the OP-1 tape player, a drum track and a melodic track. So let's have a listen to the melody here. It's incredibly simple, played in like a kind of sine wave sound, and this basically repeats for the entirety of this song. Actually bringing in the data bender gives it more character, obviously. And same with the drums. There's 1 drum beat. And this is gonna loop for the whole entire track, and it's the chords on the 404 and then the effects in the rack which makes the song interesting enough. The sound on the 404 came from a VST. I can't remember which one it was, but I was messing about with the beat and the melody, and I wasn't kind of inspired by any of the sounds on my OP-1, and when that happens I always look to other sources to find something that fits. Having the 2 progressions, I think, really lifts the song and lets it fall down and lift again, and it definitely keeps the listener interested and not focused on the fact that there's 1 melody for the entirety of the track. And to lift it up even further, I recorded another melody for the kind of last part of the chorus. I think it's worth focusing on structure quite a lot when you're doing this kind of performance, and it's nice to build things up gradually and take things out gradually. And for the final part of this track, I also bring the bit crush back in, and it brings the song up more. Ooh, yeah. So that's all that's going on in the OP-1 for this track. Let's move on to effects. So first let's take a look at the signal chain here. The OP-1 is going into the Pico input, which basically brings non-modular instruments up to modular line level. From there we're going into the UVCF, which is an analog filter from IntelliGel. Just going to stick the modulation back into that. From there we're going into the Z5000, which is a delay. Well, it's a multi-effects, but I'm using a delay for it. I can't remember which algorithm this is, but I like it because when you crank the feedback all the way up, it doesn't go out of control. It allows you to keep things at a steady level, like that. So nice. From there we're going into the data bender. From there we're going into beads, and beads is doing a kind of strange thing. Basically, I've got maths set up in this kind of triangle shape, and that is modulating the pitch. Which sounds kind of mad, but in the context when it's mixed in and within the track, it actually brings some kind of cool glitches, some like fade ins and fade outs. From there we're going into the effects aid, which for this track is set to, what's it called, Generation Lost, which adds some compression, some tonal change, a tiny bit of noise, but it's also got a very tasty bit crusher. It has this pitch manipulation. That reminds me of something, I can't remember what, but I'm using it at more subtle levels. And there is also a kind of DJ style filter from high pass to low pass to no pass right in the middle. And then I'm bringing in all of these elements at various times throughout the track, and that's the most kind of improv-y part of what I'm doing live, because I'm just doing it as I feel. There's also a master effects on the OP-1, which let's bring in. And I use that sometimes as well. You can have one effect but two settings. That's one, and that's the other, which I have dialed in. But when you press them both at the same time, you get a kind of Car Plus style, which is pretty cool. So let's bring in the 404. And now I'm just going to use different effects to show how I can keep this very simple loop interesting. Forgot to mention, Beads also has a reverb, which you can just bring in and out as you want. Let's listen to Beads as well. And now let's try the filter, which I have modulated in time. And I'm going to switch the sample here. So you can see how having kind of well thought out effects can make a very simple track really interesting. The last thing I'd like to touch on is transitioning between ideas. As electronic musicians, we tend to want no gaps in our performances. It's not like we're a band that will finish a song and be like, yo, this next track is called Party Heaven, and then we'll move on to the next song. We tend to want one long, evolving piece of music. And so you do need to consider how you're going to move between ideas. I'll set up the way my first track ended and then talk about moving into the next part. So the bit crush was going and this was also going. Nope. There we go. This is how the song kind of ends. Now the first thing I did was using the DJ FX looper on the SP-404. It allows me to freeze the audio and kind of focus on one particular chord. So I'll show you that just now. Maybe if I take the bit crush off and that, you can hear that this is now just looping that one note. And I actually did the same kind of thing on the data bender using the freeze function. Just making sure to hit it on time. So now if I stop the OP-1, you can hear I've got these two elements and they are running hands-free, and that allows me to pick the next part of my performance. There is a cool thing you can do on the OP-1. If you hold shift and the forward arrow, it will move your loop the exact amount over, and that's what I did here. And it allowed my next part of the song to come in. For this section I also took off the effects aid algorithm and moved along to the next one, which is a vinyl simulation. And I did this just to bring in some kind of wee pops and crackles, just for character. And my plan is I'm going to take off the bit crush and I'm going to take off the 404 at the same time, and that will be me kind of fully transitioned from one song to the next. So now there are no elements of the first track remaining and we're completely into the new track. My next stage in the build-up, or maybe breakdown is a better term, is to take that freeze off. And next I'm going to bring in beads, which is doing some kind of modulation thing. Now this track is very similar to the first one in that the OP-1 has only two things going on. There is a drum beat and a melody, but on top of that I'm also going to play a melody, and I'm just playing it in real time. That is a sample of my voice, my beautiful singing voice. And so the next element is bringing in the drums. The last element that I'm bringing in on this track is just a bass line on the 404, and it has the same impact as the chords did on the first track, where this very simple loop becomes something different. basically it for this track. And for this video. I hope you have enjoyed and found this video to be informative. Please leave me some comments and likes, etc, etc. And I will catch you all soon.